Welcome to Empowered Transformation with your host, Krista Dawson. Over the next hour, you will learn about tools that will support your healing process and living a life full of purpose and joy. Now, here's Krista.
Hello, and thank you for joining me as I take a leap of faith and embark on the adventure of a lifetime. Today is the maiden voyage of the radio show Empowered Transformation, and I am your host, Krista Dawson. In the not so distant past, if you would have told me I would have a coaching practice teaching people how to use life-changing tools and using my voice and passion for these tools to shout it from the Voice America mountaintop to the world, I would have told you you were out of your mind. And here I am. My dear friend Tabitha will be joining me today as my co-host as I share how I went from a rough ride on the autoimmune and addiction struggle bus to vitality and emotional freedom, and how the heck I ended up behind this microphone. And from there, Tabitha and I will be introducing the theme of this 13-week series, something that is near and dear to both of our hearts, and that is energy psychology. So I'm going to start our show first by introducing my very dear lifelong friend, Tabitha Bird Weaver. And before I let her say hello, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her. Tabitha is a duly licensed marriage and family therapist and professional counselor in the state of Oregon. She has been certified through the Association of Comprehensive Energy Psychology since 2009 and is a certified practitioner and teacher of advanced integrative therapy and chakra dance. She is a clinical fellow of the American Association for Marriage and Family, where she also served as president-elect and president for the Oregon chapter and lobbied Congress regarding mental health benefits and rights. She is a peer-reviewed, published researcher regarding the treatment and transmission of complex trauma. She is the co-founder and host of the popular, the PTS or CPTSD podcast. Tabitha provides clinical and spiritual services in her private practice, specializing in complex trauma, energy psychology, human development, and potential. And with that introduction, welcome, Tabitha.
Thank you, Krista. That all sounds so fancy when you read it together. I appreciate you having me here.
I am so thankful that you're here. So as Tabitha and I were preparing, and actually we've been preparing for months now for this, and we'll share a little bit more about that process as we go through this afternoon session together. But Tabitha, tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do, and share how we met. Share our story.
I would love to share our story. Well, I am, as you said, a therapist. I specialize in complex trauma and energy psychology. And I think it's important for people to know that I'm also in recovery from complex trauma. And so that gives a kind of an inside viewpoint. And so that's the big takeaway right now. Mm-hmm. What I would love to share, Krista, is that we met probably around the 4th grade. We were at a family camp in nature, and we connected. I connected very deeply with you, and that has never shifted, even when we've had those gaps that friendships have. You know, it's one of those friendships where I come back and I feel like I've never been away from you. And I've really always appreciated that. And I think the thing that has kept us together is a real deep sense of spirituality and a desire to be connected with others. And energy psychology is one of the things that has helped both of us heal and grow and expand our own abilities. And I'm so grateful to be sharing this time with you and seeing you come out in your energy psychology best. And I think it may be really helpful for your clientele, your audience, to know that you are smart and kind and also honest. And that has always aided in your health and in our relationship. What I'd really like to know about, Krista, is how energy psychology changed your life. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about who you were and what your life was like before you went on this really transformative journey.
Again, I'm just so honored to have Tabitha co-host me today and telling my story, because it is quite a story. And I am getting ready to do just that. So I guess the place where we need to start is, who was I and what was life like for me before EFT and energy psychology? Life was really pretty messy. I found myself in a place where I was very disillusioned with life. I had been divorced twice. I was at the time in a relationship I had no business in being in. And I viewed life through the lens of, I call it the Murphy's Law mindset, where I just anticipated that if something could go wrong, that it would. I lived with a tremendous amount of stress, worry, and just in general, life was not moving forward in a very positive fashion. So that was, and having spent years in that really pretty dysfunctional mindset, very dysfunctional mindset, I will add, which causes stress in your body, negative mindsets, negative mind frames, and choices that affect your body. I ended up with an autoimmune disorder and struggled with a doctor for a few years, really working hard to try and get my life back. I went from being a very physically active person to a couch surfer. I didn't feel like myself. I was tired. I lacked energy. I got sicker and sicker and sicker over time for a variety of reasons. And so I began to work with a doctor, and we worked really hard together for well over a year, working on taking lots of labs, getting an idea of, what deficiencies I had going on in my body. Very common side effect of autoimmune, and mine is specific to my thyroid, and a very common side effect with Hashimoto's is what it's called. Pardon me. Is that you're not absorbing nutrients correctly. You develop intolerances to all kinds of foods. And so when you're not absorbing nutrients correctly, you're getting sicker and sicker and weaker and weaker. And that was what was happening. And so we spent a year working on trying to get my medication levels right and addressing deficiencies in my body and deficiencies that I had developed over time. And we were making some progress, but I was still really struggling. And one of the things that I was struggling with was my labs would continue to come back indicating that I needed more medication. I needed a higher level. I needed to get my levels up. I was still having symptoms of being low. But when I would try to take that medication, I would feel overstimulated and like I was climbing out of my skin. I felt like the top of my head was going to explode.
No, thank you.
No, not fun. So I'm going to dive off here for just a minute. So I've been in this deep struggle for a period of time. And in the meantime, a friend of mine had introduced me or talked to me about this thing called tapping. And I had been walking around with a yellow sticky in my wallet that said Nick Ortner and the Tapping Solution. And I looked at that for months. And I remember, Tabitha, seeing on your Facebook feed that you had liked Nick Ortner and the Tapping Solution. And so I thought, well, I really respect Tabitha. She is one of the smartest people I know, and she likes energy or EFT and the tapping solution. So I'm going to like them too. And so I began to see coming up on my feed, tapping for autoimmune. And I had passed by tapping for autoimmune several times. And so here we are back to having been working so hard with the doctor. I just had an appointment. She is saying to me, we really have to get these levels up. And I'm saying to myself, I don't know how I'm going to do that because I cannot tolerate this medication. But I agreed to try it and was sitting in bed one Saturday morning, a few days after those raised levels of medication. And I was already feeling my heart racing. I was already feeling like I wanted to climb out of my skin. I already was feeling like my head was about ready to explode. And I passed by, as I'm scrolling away on Facebook, I passed by tapping for autoimmune. And I thought, what the heck? What do I have to lose here? So I opened it up. There was a brief tutorial on how to tap or what the points were, which we'll talk about a little later. And I learned the points, and then I listened and followed along in this 20-minute guided tapping meditation. And over the course of this guided tapping meditation, I tapped and I cried, and I tapped and I cried, and I tapped and I cried. And there were statements like, even though I feel like my body's betraying me, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel like nobody understands what I'm going through right now, I accept myself and how I feel. And at the end of that 20 minutes, those symptoms were gone.
The medication symptoms were gone?
The medication symptoms were completely gone.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it wasn't, those symptoms went away because I'd quit taking the medication. The symptoms went away. I understand now because through the process of tapping, I balanced and regulated my nervous system. I found out months later, so let's dial back here for just a minute. After that experience, I didn't know what had hit me. My mind, I cannot believe what just happened. This was the closest to a miracle I had ever experienced, where I saw my body change in real time as I addressed how I felt. I didn't understand what happened. I just knew something amazing happened. And that began a journey into pursuing certification. And at my first 4-day workshop, or at the 4-day workshop with Dawson Church in 2017 in Concord, there were other professionals there, and one of those happened to be an endocrinologist. And that endocrinologist approached me at the end of the day. Many of us had had the opportunity to share some of our stories. And he approached me at the end of the day and asked for me to share a little bit more. And I told him what I just told you. I tapped, and I was having all of these symptoms of being overstimulated, and all of a sudden they're gone. And I don't know what happened, but something happened. And he very graciously said, well, I can explain what happened. And so it was at that point that I understood, what he shared with me was that you activated the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, if you don't know what that means, your nervous system is divided into two branches. You have your sympathetic and parasympathetic. Your sympathetic is the gas pedal, and parasympathetic is the brake. Mm-hmm. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the autonomic nervous system, they're meant to operate in balance with each other. We need them both, but most of us are operating from an overactive sympathetic and underactive parasympathetic. And so when I was tapping on those points, I was activating the parasympathetic nervous system, regulating my nervous system, which then allowed me to tolerate the medication. And the reason for that is because the medication, the hormone was going directly to the limbic brain, the middle brain, the house of the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that sets off the fire alarm, the fight or flight mechanism. And So while I was tapping, I was soothing that limbic brain, and that medication that was going directly to that limbic brain and overstimulating that already overstimulated limbic brain was then able to be tolerated because I was regulating myself. And so coming to understand that and understand the power of the mind-body connection and understanding the power of your ability to not only allow your body to follow your mind, but allow your mind to be cued up by your body and bring things into balance, the place we're meant to operate from. And from there, my healing journey began. Wow, that was a lot.
That was a lot. I mean, but what I heard you say, bottom line is this medication was overstimulating your already driven fight or flight response.
Yes.
And when you did the tapping, you relaxed into the rest and digest response of the parasympathetic. And so the medication could actually work without harming you.
Exactly. Exactly.
That is a miracle.
It is. And it actually, this is a really great place to inject the idea that your thoughts, even thoughts like nobody knows how I feel, or my body is betraying me, is a way of activating or overstimulating that or kicking in that fight or flight. You can go into fight or flight on thought alone. And I was operating from that place, and most people do. And so learning how to balance that has been a huge part of this healing journey for me.
It sure has. And I mean, I have heard you talk about your healing journey throughout it. And so I'm just, again, so tickled to be here with, it's not the culmination of your healing journey because you will continue to heal, but you are at a place now where you are recovered enough to start spreading the word. And that is beautiful.
Yes. Yes. I think this is actually, do we have time? So we're going to save a little more detail on and explain further EFT, specifically what that is. Among some other things, we're going to talk about how I ended up behind this microphone in our next segment. But I want to take a minute to also, this healing process, which has been a process of peeling off layers. And one of the side effects of this healing process, when you're in pain, emotional pain, which many of us operate from our childhoods, from our past, from traumatic experiences, from present day experiences where you're traumatizing yourself with the choices that you make and the thoughts that you have. It's things like that that lead to issues with addiction. And there are all kinds of forms of addiction. And one of the things that I've had the pleasure of overcoming has been a struggle with alcohol abuse. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge piece that took time to really overcome. And we're going to dive down that rabbit hole of unpacking that process and those layers and putting yourself in a position to change your surroundings and do the work that you need to do within yourself to really start creating change and healing in your life. And so with that, I think we are going to take a break. Tabitha and I will be right back.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
Are you tired of feeling stuck? Are you suffering from a chronic illness, addiction issues, lack of motivation, a negative mindset, and a lack of purpose? Do you dream of a life full of purpose and the ability to respond rather than react? And what if you could see yourself through the eyes of compassion while you're in the process of creating the life of your dreams? It will be a process. Dreammakers is designed to empower transformation from being stuck and unsatisfied to a life that is moving forward with purpose and joy. You will get clear on your dreams and the limiting subconscious beliefs that block you from seeing them through. You will learn and be supported in implementing tools that develop the mind-body connection and rewire your brain for success and mastery. Dream Makers is a 12-week online course with weekly live Zoom meetings, a book and workbook, access to accountability, and group support. Spots are limited. Experts say that if a person could do one thing to increase health and happiness, expressing gratitude would be it. Gratitude is an easy, attainable way to improve your outlook and begin rewiring your brain for resilience. You will learn the clinically proven benefits of a gratitude practice, why and how gratitude works to rewire your brain for resilience, and most importantly, a simple but powerful way to amplify your gratitude practice that will benefit your mind and body while improving your outlook.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You're listening to Empowered Transformation with Krista Dawson. If you have questions or want to contact Krista, go to KristaDawson.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. This is Krista, and I am here with my amazing lifelong friend, Tabitha Bird Weaver, and we are unpacking my story a bit because it is a transformation story. And then we're going to break open energy psychology and EFT. We're going to explain energy psychology in more detail so that you can understand, what it is. So we're going to start out. We ended with some talk about one of the struggles that I've had and I'm so thankful for the success that I've had around addiction with alcohol abuse. So we talked a little bit about when you are in a state of suffering, which many of us are operating from that state, you look for places where you can disconnect, hide out. And I had developed a habit of daily checking out every evening. And, my days were spent feeling terrible, recovering from checking out every night. And this went on for years. And one of the amazing side effects of this journey of healing, and it was actually, so I went to the 4-day workshop, and from there I signed up for my certification, and that was a 3-year process. It took some time. And so while I was in that process and growing my understanding of the nervous system, my understanding of healing, health, and well-being, that I began to feel what it felt like to be connected to myself. And I felt more profoundly the effects of what I was causing in terms of disconnection from myself through alcohol abuse and addiction. And falling in love with how I felt being connected became more important than disconnecting. And so it was from there that I made the decision I committed to a year of sobriety. And after a year of sobriety, why the heck would you start again? And in my case, it's just a better decision. So that was a really important part of my process, and really felt like evidence of my progress. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I just have to take a moment, and I don't know if you can hear my yard people coming through. I'm really glad. I'm thankful for people that come and do my yards. They've been doing it every Monday, right on time at 8:30 in the morning and done by 10. And that's why I chose this time. And as of 2 weeks ago, they've started coming right at this time. So I'm sorry for the distraction, folks, if that's there.
The irony, and I love how you're not seeing that as Murphy's Law anymore.
No, I am not.
Krista, I have a question for you.
Yes.
And I think it might be helpful for people listening to this. When we start getting into that connection with ourselves that you found satisfying, sometimes that's hard. Mm. What did you do to allow yourself to feel that connection and any emotional stress that came with that and keep going? Because sometimes it's like I can keep going or I can turn that off. Those are the only two choices. What did you do?
Right. Well, if I'm understanding your question correctly, So let's go back to my experience, my first experience with EFT and the soothing, that diminishment of those side effects from that medication that I saw in real time. Did those symptoms come back down the road? Yes, they did. And what that meant was, or what I learned was, or what I really latched onto is, that doesn't mean that this doesn't work. I experienced that this works. What I took that as meaning is, I have more work to do. And so, which means that you grow into a place where you allow everything in your life to be an opportunity to grow and to heal. If something is causing you distress or stress or worry or pain, all of those experiences are opportunities for you to be inquisitive, to be curious, to be compassionate, to be kind with yourself, and do the work of unremembering, getting to the source or the roots of those stresses or limiting beliefs that you might hold, getting to the core of, or the roots of, what's causing your need to want to disconnect. And so it does take courage. And but having these tools that help soothe the nervous system and balance the nervous system and invite you out of that stressed state, that, stressed breathing or those stressed thoughts, it makes it easier to relax into the experience. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So what I heard you say there is that EFT allowed you the tolerance to experience that reconnection and all of the choices you had to make around that.
Right.
Because it's fast. EFT is really fast in the moment.
Right. Which, this could be a nice time to explain briefly for those listening who don't know what EFT is.
Yeah.
What that is. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And it is a combination of exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, coupled with the stimulation of acupressure points. These acupressure points has been clinically proven over and over. As you stimulate these points with, you're just using your fingertips, as you stimulate these points, you are literally sending a signal to the limbic brain, the fight or flight mechanism, signaling that it's okay, you're safe, there isn't a tiger in the bushes. You're actually using your body to cue your mind out of states of stress. And so with that understanding, when you meet a troubling experience or something that's bothering you with a relaxed nervous system, it allows your brain then to reassign new meaning to that problem. It allows you to clear the energy around that problem, to neutralize how the problem feels in your thoughts, in your body. So it's a really powerful tool used very effectively, not only for trauma and PTSD, but it also can be effectively used for affirmation, for implementing or using that in your meditation practice. It can be used for making or really bolstering the power of your affirmations. So it's a very powerful tool that can be used in learning how to work with your energy and how to neutralize negative or traumatic experiences, and leads the way through balancing the nervous system in you beginning to access what it feels like to operate from a balanced nervous system, which a natural byproduct is a state of well-being, and learning how to re-access your joy, maybe even.
And that state of well-being would be like a calm centeredness. Is that what you're describing?
Yes. Yes. Reacquainting yourself with your ability. So this would be a nice way to put this. There were many starting points of, or kind of landmark places along the way in this healing process for me. And one of them started a few years prior to even coming across EFT. And it was the moment that I realized that people, places, and circumstances were not responsible for my happiness, which made me really start looking at, wow, this situation's really disrupting my life. Why? Why am I allowing this? What am I believing? What am I hearing? What am I interpreting from this situation? And in doing that, also taking full responsibility for my own self, for my own health and my own well-being, and taking responsibility for my healing process. And so I've forgotten where we've started from. Help me out.
No problem. We were talking about EFT, emotional freedom technique, and that it can result in an experience of being centered and grounded and calm.
Right. So in the process of taking responsibility for yourself, it's going to be a lot easier to support yourself through when, those times when you become aware that, wow, I'm really letting this situation bother me. And so learning how to use the mind-body connection to help you regulate yourself. And when you regulate yourself, you have better access to your own inner guidance, to your own ability to solve problems, your own ability to relax out of states of stress and worry, and shift your attention onto something that you do want to focus on rather than that thing that's bothering you. So again, these are all cultivated practices. They're cultivated skills that are measurable in your brain, measurable in your neurology, and it's something that can be cultivated and practice your way into growing your ability to regulate and bring yourself out of those states of stress and back to that state of well-being, which, by the way, we're designed to operate from.
Absolutely designed to operate from there. And another thing I love about energy psychology and EFT in particular is that if you've had trauma specifically, because that's my wheelhouse, right? Mm-hmm. We tend to have a real negative core concept of ourself. And as you master things through EFT, that shifts, not only because EFT always starts out with acceptance of self right where you're at. Right. And that really over time can help that negative self-concept come down so that you then have even more resources to heal. And so in my experience, there's kind of this place of critical mass where you're healed enough that it isn't so hard all the time, but you still have work to do.
Exactly.
Was there a critical mass place for you where it was easier to get ahead, but you still had to do the effort?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I want people to take away from this is, although EFT was this huge, whoa, what just happened, and began this amazing journey, it didn't end there. And what you grow to understand is that over time, and as time progresses in your healing journey, you will have what you need as you need it. Different modalities will present themselves. Have been influenced by several modalities that have all served in very profound ways. Reiki being one of them, medicine work being another, chakra dance being another, working with you with AIT, the traditional Chinese meridian system or traditional Chinese medicine. There's so much wisdom in these ancient traditions, the chakra system. And so it has been many things that have contributed to this healing process and getting me where I am. And what has happened and what I've observed is that the healing process is a process that will never end. It will go on and on. You're never going to be done growing and having potential to deepen your understanding of yourself and the universe that we live in. But what we can experience, and what I feel like I've experienced, is I have stepped into what I like to call for myself a compassionate companionship with myself, where it's not only, it's understanding not only my mind and my body, but it's also been a companionship in learning how to work with my own energy, okay, and how to work with my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's healing on multiple levels, and it's stepping into a companionship with my energy body, with my emotional body, learning how to use them to help me shift energy, how to heal, and then, of course, the mind-body connection. And so the critical mass piece was, wow, I'm not done growing. That's never going to end. But I've gotten good at this. Really
That's
good
lovely.
at this.
That's really lovely.
Okay. And from that place, you can experience. I lost my dad this last year. And I was able to make that a really meaningful experience
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to show up with courage and not be afraid to feel and not be overwhelmed with my feelings of grief and loss. They're just feelings. They're energy in motion, and I can feel them fearlessly because I'm not going to get eaten by them. Okay? So it allows you to show up in a more authentic manner in your life and to embody your gifts, which we didn't even get to how I ended up here. And that's a whole other rabbit trail. Yeah. So I hope that answered your question.
It did. And I love that compassionate companionship idea. That is really, really lovely. I'm wondering, Krista, if it would be helpful for us to just talk a little bit about EFT specifically so that we're prepared for our next bit. And what I would like to bring to the table is to say that EFT is one of the oldest and most researched energy psychologies there is. And that's saying something, because did you know that 10% of all research is about energy psychology?
Wow.
Yeah. And I think people don't realize how much this isn't out of pocket anymore. This isn't woo-woo anymore. This is just true and real. What is it like for you to feel something so deeply and to know scientifically also that it works?
Well, first of all, that it feels absolutely exciting to me that science is finally catching up with the wisdom that's been out there forever and ever, for thousands of years. That feels so exciting to me. And I love that science, the understanding and the interpretation of what's happening that science brings. But for me, it feels awe-inspiring, super exciting. It makes me feel all wiggly inside because I just get so excited about it. So I love that the research and study that has been a part of EFT and energy psychology is helping to demystify these ancient traditions and understandings of us as minds, bodies, energy, and emotional bodies.
Our whole being.
Yes, exactly. So we are getting ready for a break. Tabitha and I will be back with more detail on energy psychology, and maybe if we have time, a little bit on how I ended up here behind this mic, but we might have to save that for the next episode. Anyway, Tabitha and I will be right back with all kinds of juicy information about energy psychology. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Follow us on Twitter at VoiceAmericaTRN. Get the lowdown on guests, new shows, and your favorites. That's VoiceAmericaTRN. Experts say that if a person could do one thing to increase health and happiness, expressing gratitude would be it. Gratitude is an easy, attainable way to improve your outlook and begin rewiring your brain for resilience. You will learn the clinically proven benefits of a gratitude practice, why and how gratitude works to rewire your brain for resilience, and most importantly, a simple but powerful way to amplify your gratitude practice that will benefit your mind and body while improving your outlook. Are you tired of feeling stuck? Are you suffering from a chronic illness, addiction issues, lack of motivation, a negative mindset, and a lack of purpose? Do you dream of a life full of purpose and the ability to respond rather than react? And what if you could see yourself through the eyes of compassion while you're in the process of creating the life of your dreams? It will be a process. Dreammakers is designed to empower transformation from being stuck and unsatisfied to a life that is moving forward with purpose and joy. You will get clear on your dreams and the limiting subconscious beliefs that block you from seeing them through. You will learn and be supported in implementing tools that develop the mind-body connection and rewire your brain for success and mastery. Dreammakers is a 12-week online course with weekly live Zoom meetings, a book and workbook, access to accountability, and group support. Spots are limited.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You're listening to Empowered Transformation with Krista Dawson. If you have questions or want to contact Krista, go to KristaDawson.com. Now, back to the show.
And we're back. We're in our final segment here. And because I said I would, I'm going to share briefly about how I ended up here with Voice America behind this mic, because it's quite a story. So I'm going to share a bit about that, and then we're going to make some space for Tabitha to expand on energy psychology and bring some of her amazing insight into all of this. And I can't wait for our next week, which we'll explain in a bit. So one of the things that you can look forward to as you head into that compassionate companionship and as you walk into and on this healing path is as you return to authenticity, as you return to your strengths, as you begin to start really tuning in and learning how to listen to your own inner guidance, and you start really tuning into the things that put joy in your heart and a fire in your belly, which for me, since I was a little girl, you know, when I discovered EFT and I pursued the certification, I experienced this and was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what just happened here, but that I need to know more about that. And I need to share this with people. And I look back on my life, and that urge and desire to help has always been there from the time I was a little girl. And to be able to, you know, at 53 years old, having, you know, gone through several gyrations in my life, which I believe now all served a purpose and gave me access and kind of like street cred to a certain degree with life experience that have led me to where I am now. And so how this whole Voice America thing happened was I had finally started and opened my own practice. And out of nowhere, I get this phone call from Robert Cellino, executive producer of Voice America, asking me if I was interested in hosting a radio show. And it was something that was so out of the blue and so out of my scope of where this could maybe go. But I have learned enough about the universe and how it works to know that you just never know how things are going to roll out. And all you have to do is show up and say yes. And opportunities are going to present themselves along the way, offering you what you need to continue your growth cycle and to embody your soul's purpose on the planet. And so after a lot of consideration and contemplation, I had many talks with Tabitha regarding all of this. I had many talks with Robert. But most importantly, what I heard when I sat with myself on this question, should I do this, was a loud and firm yes from every fiber in my being. And if for no other reason than for the growth that I knew that I would experience by taking this leap of faith and by saying yes to this guidance, even though it felt scary and way outside of my skill set, or, you know, was never where I would have envisioned that I could potentially end up. And whether I'll stay here is another question. I don't know. What I do know is that just if I stopped right now today, I have learned so much from this experience. It's been worth it. But it's not stopping today. I have several more weeks to go, and I'm super excited about it. So my being here is testimony to, number one, through my healing journey, cultivating enough fortitude within myself, trust in the process, learning that I have the ability to learn new things, learning how to manage myself and any stress that I might have around the process. So it has been a culmination of a lot of things, and an evidence that you can and probably will end up doing things that you never thought you would do when you surrender to the process and surrender to the journey. And the most important piece is there is nothing that lights my fire more than this passion that I have for healing, the healing process, and the broader audience that I can be exposed to, the better. And so it is fearlessly not being afraid of being seen and heard, and all of those things, my friends, I did not have a year ago. Okay. So here we are, the adventure of a lifetime. Where it will go, I do not know. All I know is that I'm so honored to have this opportunity, and it's been an amazing experience. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton now to Tabitha and have her help me define energy psychology.
I am happy to do that, Krista. And I just want to comment before we dig into the technical stuff that what I'm hearing you say, I've heard from my own self, as well as pretty much all of my clients that have been able to tolerate therapy, because it can be hard at the beginning, as we've been talking about, is that when you go through the process of healing, you're not going back to something you were before. You're not becoming a different person. You're becoming more you.
I love that.
You're becoming more you and more free in that. And energy psychology is a great path because it is researched, it is evidence-based, and it is effective and expedient. Now, that doesn't mean, as we've talked before, that energy psychology is going to be a one and done, right? Because we're complicated beings. But pretty much the foundation of what energy psychology is that there's a combination of a couple different things in a therapeutic setting, right? So the therapeutic setting is really important. And that means pick your practitioner well, right? But the first thing is, you've already mentioned them. There is some somatic experience that's happening, and we process it and we track it, and we use the body to redirect or shift that energy flow that we can all feel. We all know when we have a knot in our throat. We all know when our belly flips. We know those things. And that is the flow of energy and emotion. And so there's that somatic component. And with EFT, that's tapping. Other energy psychologies have holds or other things that they do to incorporate the body, but it also uses the mind. And the mind part is, what are those negative concepts or those limiting beliefs or the core traumas, however the modality describes that? What are those things? And then it combines those two things, your body and your mind, in an adaptive process so that you become more healed, but not necessarily the opposite. So like, let's say you have a core belief that is, I am unworthy. The opposite isn't I'm worthy no matter what, because I'm not sure we would ever feel that as humans, right? But the healing statement might be something like, it's good enough for me to be human. And so there's an approximation that gets us there. So to just summarize the nugget, energy psychology combines the body, the mind, and the energy flow. And there are some other therapies coming out in more medical approaches that are also doing this. And so I know that we're on the cutting edge here with energy psychology and have been for 25 years, right? The other thing I love about energy psychology is that it is able to incorporate ancient wisdom like tapping or chakra holds without having to partake in the religion of that. But also most energy psychologies that I am aware of and involved in appreciate the culture where that came from. And so there's respect there. And I think those are the main core components. I would just say flat out our energy psychology. I would love to know more about from you EFT specifically, because EFT has been groundbreaking in the field of energy psychology. Dawson Church has done a lot of research. The Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology has supported research. Another name that's a big one out there for EFT is David Feinstein. There is real research that not only does EFT help us move past the negative core beliefs that cause emotional distress and limits in our life, but physically there are changes. There are studies showing rheumatoid arthritis remission, cancer remission, Hashimoto's adaptations, right? So it's really exciting. And I would love to turn it over to you and hear about what you think about EFT and maybe tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, speaking of adaptation and healing and the effects of regulating and cultivating emotional health, a couple of things that I can say very personally. The last several times I've tested, my antibody levels are now out of range with the autoimmune. So I am
That's
no
exciting.
longer, I'm in the autoimmune aspect is in remission. And I can also say that with every layer of healing, emotional healing that I've experienced, I have required less and less medication. Some people really strive to be, completely medication free. And I don't know that I need to do that, but I'm certainly open to it. And if it is going to happen, it's a process that I want to be very natural. And what is very naturally happening is that my body is requiring less and less medication. And so I am seeing the benefits and the byproducts of healing, cultivating balance in my life, and healing negative core beliefs. I'm living it. I'm living that experience. What more specifically
do I want to know about?
Wow.
Okay. I think one thing that would be really helpful to know about for your audience is that energy psychology and EFT in particular has something called a psychological reversal. And that is basically inner conflict. And I think if you could talk just a little bit about that setup statement, it might help people understand how we get down the road with EFT.
Yes, got it. So I have developed a theory. And that theory is the heart of healing lies in relaxing. And I do not mean to oversimplify how difficult the healing process can be and how painful it can be. But the whole premise of EFT lies in this setup statement. Even though I have this feeling, even though I have this thought, even though I have this belief, I deeply and completely accept myself. And for some people, it's very difficult to even say that. So you host them in any number of statements that might meet that statement or their exposure to their problem. The most important thing, though, that I want to point out is in that acceptance, that really is a form of relaxing. It's like this. It's your body responding to the knowledge and the understanding that you are loved and it's okay to feel the way that you feel. And that by itself is so huge and such a relief for most people, all by itself as a standalone. And it's amazing what you make room for in how you think, how you feel, and how you respond when you take that resistance out of whatever it is that you're dealing with. And you allow yourself to acknowledge how you feel without judgment and with self-acceptance. And so that is a absolutely central part of EFT and a very powerful one. We are coming close, very, very close to the end of our time here. And I want to set the stage for our next show next week. We are going to be hearing more from Tabitha, a bit more of her personal experience. We're going to hear more about some really huge personal experiences she had that have shifted her personal life and that have shifted her practice. And oh man, I'm so sad. We're almost done. Anyway, so we're going to be hearing more about Tabitha, and then she's going to be rolling out trauma, explaining trauma to us. The more you understand about these things, the better and broader your experience is with the tools that are offered to you through energy psychology and other healing modalities. Thank you so much, Tabitha. Where can people find you?
I am all over social media, either under my name, Tabitha Bird Weaver, or the CPTSD podcast.
Brilliant. And we're going to be talking more about that next time because she's doing really amazing things with this podcast. And you can find me at KristaDawson.com or on Facebook. And you can find me here at Voice America. And thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Empowered Transformation with Krista Dawson. We hope you have gained insight into the healing process and added tools to your tool belt. Until we talk again, have a beautiful week.